Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode. I'm so excited to talk to my guest today. I read his novel, his most recent novel that came out in 24 hours over Christmas. And as I was telling him before we started recording, I walked away early on like Christmas Eve to go read it in bed. I read it in the car as my parents were talking to me and I was pretending to pay attention. Like I had this at the pool because I was in Florida at the time. Like I could not put this novel down 24 hours and it was the fastest book I've read this year, actually. Yeah. And then the one after
Well,
it, which is a suggestion for you later, is the other one I read in like a similar time frame, but it was the fastest book I read this year
well,
for
I'm
sure.
sorry, not sorry about that.
It's and to no surprise to my audience, it's a thriller. It's a YA thriller, which is my favorite. But anyway, without further ado, please welcome my guest, Jumata Emill, whose newest novel, I Don't Wish You Well, comes out in January. It came out in January, January 20th, which when we're recording this is like next week. So we're on the cusp. So, Jumata, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, and I have just been appreciating all of your enthusiasm online for the book. It has made me smile. My mom loved it at Christmas. I showed her one of the
Oh my
videos and
God.
she laughed.
It's so good. First and foremost, congratulations. You're on the cusp of publication. And I asked you this earlier, but so I know you have, if I'm not mistaken, it's three novels. I've read
Mhm.
Black Queen, which I read, I think, in July of last year. So that's how I found this novel on NetGalley. I was like, "Oh, he wrote another one? Yes, of course. Here I am. I have not read your second novel. This will be your third. Does it
Yes.
get easier around publication and the nerves and all
It
that?
No, you're always nervous because you're always worried, like, how is this gonna sell? Are people gonna like it?
Mhm.
You do have. I felt a little bit more imposter syndrome with this book rather than my second book, and usually most writers
Mm.
feel it with their second book. But with my second book, I had already written it, and it was going in copy edits when The Black Queen was released, and so I didn't
Oh,
have the pressure of like the outside
yeah.
noise. I had it when I was writing this book, and it doesn't get easier, but I will say this, even when it's hard, it's still the job that I want.
I want to sing praise before you tell us a little bit about the novel is I love a YA, I love a thriller, and I think one of the things that I loved the most about your novel was it was fast paced. I was on the edge of
Mhm.
my seat, like I couldn't put it down, but you also did an amazing job of balancing some very difficult and real topics and some very relatable characters for anybody who's reading them. And I think I felt fully invested in their story, as we were talking about earlier, and fully invested in what happens to them, and not just like
Yeah.
in the scheme of like the mystery, but just like as human beings. And so I felt an emotional tie to them. And I even teared up at one of the main turning point was like I teared up during it because I
Oh,
felt something about it and I can't obviously we don't do spoilers on this podcast. I can't
yeah,
tell.
yeah.
We've already talked about it, but when it happened, I was like I started like tearing up because I felt something about
Oh.
it. So you did a phenomenal job.
Well, thank you so much. As a writer, you're writing these stories, and I want you to feel these. I want readers to feel
Mhm.
those things. That you don't know if they're going to. You don't know what
Yeah.
lands. And at a certain point, when we're writing and we're rewriting and we're revising, it kind of starts to feel a little bit empty to us because we're
Mhm.
going over the words so many times and we're like, does this really land anymore?
Yeah.
So hearing your reaction to things, it makes me feel it honestly makes me feel so, so good. And honestly, I'm not one of these authors that like I can't take criticism because the criticism doesn't bother me as well either because
Mm.
I was a journalist for 18 years. I'm used to having these outside voices, having opinions about what you write and how you write it and what you
Yeah.
do. But it has been so good and I was just telling you a moment ago, seeing some of the early praise that the book is getting, it has meant a lot to me because when you're three books in, nothing beats that high that you feel on your debut year. It doesn't really
Mm.
get better than that when it's your first time out. And I will say that this is the time that I'm starting to feel a little bit of that again. I'm getting that same dopamine rush of just
Mm.
being really optimistic and feeling hopeful about this book and how characters are going to receive them. So I'm so happy that you're in love with my boys. Like I
Mm. So, and I think I want to first, well, first let me ask you, can you give the audience a synopsis of your novel, I Don't Wish You Well.
Yeah, I don't wish you well. It's the story of Price Cummings. He is a freshman at Whitmore University, which is a fictional HBCU in northern Louisiana. He is a journalism student who did not get some internships that he was expecting, but he had a really great freshman year working for his school newspaper. And so when he's on his way back home for the summer, which he kind of doesn't want to go home because also what college gave him was an opportunity to kind of step into his truth, and that is explore his sexuality, be himself. And now he has to go back home to a town where he then has to virtually go back into the closet and be a version of himself that he thinks is acceptable. So he said, well, you know what? If I got to do this, I want to have some fun out of this. He's very driven. He's a very dedicated journalist. And there were these murders that happened 5 years ago, and they were called the Trojan Mask murders. And they were a series of brutal killings to the star players of his high school's football team. And Price has always felt that the police got the killer wrong. The killer was unmasked during the murders, but he always felt uneasy about the explanation that
Mm,
the police tried to give about why the killings happened. And when the story opens up, Price
mm.
stumbles across some information that kind of really throws the killer's guilt into question again. And he starts to like go down a rabbit hole that goes way deep into a lot of long buried secrets in his town that no one wants to come out, and really puts him in the crosshairs of possibly the real Trojan mass killer.
What came first, the characters or the story? Because you did balance, like I said, thriller and mystery, and then some very real, important topics that I think all readers will appreciate.
I'm gonna make you laugh. None of those things happened for me to start this book, okay? You know how the idea for this book came about? I was in the gym working out and I was listening to Kelly Clarkson Never Again. And there's a line in Never Again where she says, I don't wish bad things for you, but I don't wish you well. And I was like, oh God, that's a great title of a book.
It is.
And, and so I was kind of like, okay, I opened up my notes app and I was like, dictate, I don't wish you well, possible title for a future book. And I put it back down, continue working out. And then it kind of stayed with me for a couple of days. And usually when that happened, I start to go, okay, well, if this is a book, what is this book about? And so I
Mm.
worked backwards from a title. And so
Ooh.
then I started to kind of like figure out, okay, what am I going to do this time? After my first two books, The Black Queen and Wander in the Dark, they deal very heavily with race in America. And I was thinking to myself, oh, for my third book, I want to do something that's light. I don't want to deal with race. I kind of want to just have something fun that I can just kind of write and have a lot of fun, have a popcorn thrill I can have fun
Mhm.
with. That's how it started. That's how it
Uh-huh.
started. But as I started to develop the characters and to develop this world, I thought about something else that was also a topic that always kind of was there and was always also very troubling for me when I was a journalist. And it was, and without trying to get into spoiler territory, because it's very easy that we can get into that with this. We're like talking about some of the topics, but I
Mhm.
always wanted to really explore kind of, my first two books, I had queer characters who had families and parents and friends and worlds where they were accepted easily.
Mm.
And that was more of a sign of the times the way they are today. I have a
Mhm.
niece who is around the age of the character that I write. And I can remember, like, they were going to prom. One of her friends was a gay boy. He was going to prom with his boyfriend. That never
Mhm.
happened in my time period. That showed me, and she would talk to me, well, Uncle, he's gay. It's not a big deal to us. So
Mm.
that was a sign of the times. But
Yeah.
also, I think that there are still pockets of homophobia, of toxic masculinity, this toxic football culture or sports culture, especially in the South,
Mm.
that I wanted to explore. And wanting to explore those topics, I knew there were certain aspects of those topics that I wanted to explore even deeper. And so I said, oh God, this is going to be another heavy one. And when you're writing thrillers with heavy topics like this, I'm so happy that you said it was balanced well because that's one thing I always
Hmm.
struggle with. Am I balancing this properly? Because one of the things you don't want to do is have these very heavy topics that feel like they're just these like sensationalized plot points, which
Mm,
sometimes can happen in a lot of thrillers, and you don't really
yeah.
sit with it. You don't have the character sitting with the heaviness of what's happening. And so I really did want to try, or I strived to try to have these characters dealing with these heavy topics, having young people. I think it's so important. I hate when people say, well,
Yeah.
young people shouldn't have to deal with these. Our young people do need to face these very real world things because if we want a better tomorrow, we got to start working on this today.
Hmm.
And I think that I hate when people say young people aren't equipped or mature to handle stuff. Yes, they are. They're actually, I think they're better than adults, to be honest with you, you
Yeah.
know? And so I really wanted to explore. I said, well, I guess I'll go ahead and do it. I've already walked through this door. Let me go ahead and tackle some topics that felt very personal to me that I wanted to explore about identity, about culture, about small towns and even really some of the Christian bigotry that it
Mm,
can be in the Bible Belt South, explore some of that, what it does to queer people, queer kids who are subjected to this, and really explore that through a lot of different, through the dynamics of friendships, through the dynamics of sports, through the dynamics of family. And what
hmm.
and religion and what that means. And so to hear you say, to hear your reaction to it, it's making me feel really, really good because I really set out to kind of do that with this book. And so the characters and everything that came from it just really came from one, that title, me trying to say, well, what is this going to be about?
I think you, as much as there were heavy topics, like you said, I think not only did you balance it well, but like at no point did it feel so overwhelmingly heavy. Like we talk about one of the friendships in the
Yeah,
book, and there's
yeah,
like comedy with that. There's some beautiful
yes,
moments with family. Like there's so much in it that balances that out in so many characters for people to kind of relate to in one way or
yes.
another that come together so beautifully.
But
Mm,
I want people to be able to escape. And that feels weird with some of the top. When people read it, but they'll be like, ooh, okay, this is kind of heavy to say you want people to escape. But I do still want it to feel like an escape from the real
yeah.
world. And enough that, the thing that I've always said about thrillers and mysteries is that I think people enjoy them the most because it allows you to experience some of the dark natures of human nature but at a safe distance. I also want young people to have the tools to also, one, sometimes give their parents grace,
Hmm.
uh, and realize that, your parents are coming from, as an adult, I realize this, your parents are coming from a place of protection a lot of times. And even though sometimes they make the wrong decisions,
Yeah.
it's all about protecting you from a world they know is unfair.
Yeah.
And so I think it's so important. I was also very intentional about my chosen friend. I always wanted to have diverse friend groups, like straight, gay.
Mm-hmm.
I want women. I want men. I want straight. I have straight guy friends. I want all of it because I've always wanted to see. I want different opinions and I want different worldviews coming at me, not just as a
Yeah.
writer, but I just want to always be able to see the world. Even if I don't agree with the person, I want to be able to see and have the empathy I need in order to be a freaking better person in the
Yeah.
world
Yeah.
and live outside of my bubble, in my echo
Yeah.
chamber. And so
Yeah.
I think that I get to have all that. And me and my friends, especially my white friends, we have very tough conversations. Like the only reason I was able to write the Black Queen, and right, I remember when I was writing the Black Queen, and I remember I was trying to write Tinsley's chapters, and I stopped. I was like, I don't know how to do this. I said, I don't know
Mm.
what a white person should be feeling. I don't know, how it feels to confront privilege, and what I don't know what this looks like. And I can remember I was with my white best friends, and this is around the time of the George Floyd protests, and everything was happening. We were talking about that, and they were talking about the conversations and the arguments they were having with their parents and their families. And I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is what
Yeah.
she's
Yeah.
supposed to
Yeah.
be feeling. So I would have never had that breakthrough without
Yeah.
having those friendships and like having,
Hmm.
and they talked to me honestly. They were telling me this is what we talk about when Black kids aren't around the table. Like this is what we're talking about at
Mm.
my family dinners. And I was able to write that scene where Tinsley has dinner with her family, because I was like,
Yeah.
this is what I heard it was like. And so it really helped me to really, like you said, I know you talked later, like you really liked how, the characters feel real. I'll say I'm going to contribute that to a lot of my friends and being able to have all these ideas and all these opinions and all these emotions and all these different experiences coming at me at one time.
I feel like it's important to see the people behind the pages and to see where it comes from because you learn and you appreciate it even more than you
More,
thought you
yeah,
would. Yeah. Ugh. Jamada,
we
thank you
live and
so
learn.
much for being
Thank
here.
you.
This has been so much fun. I could sit and chat with you all day, but I also know we have time constraint. We have another episode to
Yes,
do, but
we do.
I really appreciate you. And where can everybody find you? Where can they get your books? It'll be out by now.
Yeah, it'll be out. It came out January 20th. And then on social media, you can find me everywhere at Brown Boy Writing. And I'm Instagram, Threads, TikTok at Brown Boy Writing. You can find me easily.
Amazing.